Hi, everybody. It's Friday. I told you I'd be here, and I'm here. I'm going to be here every Monday and Friday and on the weekends for the post game and halftime shows. I'm not going to let a bad back stop me from doing what I truly love to do, and that's piss and moan. That has become my goal in life, is to be just a fly in the ointment. And it is my intention today to continue pursuing my point from the last two programs for those people who continue to try to blame Kevin Stefanski's play calling and Baker Mayfield's interception for the reason why we lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. But I'm going to let it come out of the mouth of Joe Babe in the Woods, so that you will understand once and for all what the problem is with the Cleveland Browns and why it's about to become a bigger problem yet. You know, it would be one thing if it's like, okay, I kind of watched the game with tinted glasses and I was not real happy having watched the Steelers manhandle the Bills, and it looked like our defense was motionless compared to what Pittsburgh was doing on the field, and it pissed me off because it's like, we're not going to beat them. It's not going to be easy just throwing the ball over the middle against them. It's not. There's going to be a real pass rush and all the things that you know when you saw their defense compared to our pressure that we were putting and how hard we were exerting. Well, you know, Joe Woods gave a press conference, but very few people sit through and listen to every single word. And I'm not going to give you every single word. I'm going to give you two sound bites. Two. And you can judge for yourself what I'm saying. And what we're going to do is we're going to share the screen. And again, I have to walk myself through this because I'm a cow and I'm not the brightest cow in the world. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to share that. Okay. Now, I want you to be aware of the fact that as I move on to the second sound bite, it might run an ad because YouTube is just fucked up that way, okay? Like I said, piss and moan, piss and moan. All right, and I will go full screen with this so you can see his mug and listen to what he says, okay? You ready? The question is going to be asked about, geez, you know, we played kind of conservatively defensively. Is that just something that you were doing for Kansas City because of how powerful they are? The answer.
Kind of following up on Tony's question, would you say you're probably more conservative against Kansas City than you normally would be?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think there's a certain way that we would like to play them. You know, some teams may be a little bit different, but you just want to limit the explosive plays to their playmakers, and then you have to pick and choose when you want to get aggressive to get after them.
All right, you got to pick and choose when to be aggressive.
Apparently, the entire fourth quarter was a time to not be aggressive.
Well, and so this is from the man's mouth. All right. You got to pick and choose. You know, I was watching the Steelers, and they were aggressive from the first snap to the last snap. You know, aggressive doesn't mean blitzing. It's just playing at speed. But, you know, if you tell people, you've really got to be aware so that nobody gets behind you because they're so good at making explosive plays that you got to make sure, above all else, nobody gets past you. Now, how are you going to play if you're a young player? You're going to play on your heels. It's the only way it's going to work. And so you can say, well, I'll let him catch the ball. But you see, the thing is that the way he makes it sound is, yeah, we really made them work. Right? We really made them work to get the points they got. And here's one for you. How many passes did Patrick Mahomes complete in the game? I mean, if you had to guess how many was it?
Total?
Total for the game, yep.
It was 26, right?
I was
That's
going to
very
say
close.
20. Well, off the top of my head, I was going to say 24.
All right. And the answer is 27 for 37. Okay. He threw 37
Close.
passes, but he completed 27. All right. You want to hear the most remarkable part of it? 17 of them were to Kelsey and Hill. Now, what kind of fucking bullshit is this? I mean, how can you plan a game planning the defense, knowing that Kelsey and Hill are their best receivers? And so your strategy is, yeah, we're going to take away the shit. We're not even going to try to stop the good players. And we'll pick and choose our times when we are aggressive. All right? But if this doesn't convince you in and of itself, the next one will. When Tony Grossi asked the question about Travis Kelce, listen to the answer. This is not me. This is Joe Woods. Let's go.
Philosophy also pertain to Kelsey. Seems he's always got the free release. Is there a schematic reason for that?
You can't cover them all.
All right, there you go.
Oh, jeez.
Now, with a big smile on his face. Can't cover them all. Can't cover Hill, can't cover Kelsey. We didn't plan for that. This guy is going to ruin the fucking team. We're being flushed down the toilet with this guy. And I am not going to take any other approach to this but to keep beating this dead horse over and over and over again. All right? That's what I'm going to do. And don't take my word for it. Take my co-host. Derek, where was Joe Woods, the defensive coordinator, last?
If I'm not, oh no, he was on the Niners coaching their secondary.
Yeah, I didn't ask that. I asked where he was a defensive coordinator.
If I'm not mistaken,
Denver.
it's Denver. Yeah.
Let's take a look at his wonderful resume. All right.
This ought to be fun.
No, I mean, Denver Broncos. In Woods' first season coaching the Broncos 2015, they finished first against the pass. While the defensive backfield accounted for 11 interceptions, 56 passes defense to 9 forced fumbles and 4 touchdowns. All right. He was chosen to be promoted to defensive coordinator for the 2017 season. And they finished first in the NFL in pass defense in both 2015 and 2016, with Woods coaching the team's defensive backs. With him coaching the team's defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
In Woods' first season as defensive coordinator, they dropped to third in total defense. The Broncos' fifth-ranked run defense in 2017 was particularly impressive, but the pass, went down. Pass defense declined. The 49ers then hired Joe Woods, not as a defensive coordinator, folks, but back as a defensive back coach and a passing game coordinator. In fact, with the Raiders, Woods coached the defensive backs in 2014. He was brought to Minnesota in 2006 along with Mike Tomlin. Woods spent 8 seasons coaching defensive backs in Minnesota. He's never done shit as a defensive coordinator. He got his chance with the best defense. You remember how good they were. They were so good that it seems to me Tim Tebow was somewhere in the mix winning games. Okay? They had a good defense in Denver. But by the time he left after 2017, you never heard that again. And where he ended up subsequently going was not increasing his stock. He was a defensive back coach again. All of a sudden in 2020, he's hired by the Browns as a defensive coordinator. You tell me. I am not going to be coy. I could be. but I'm not going to be. Kevin Stefanski
That would require gills.
is a first-time head coach 1 year ago. Did a great job in his rookie year. He really has proven to be a very fine start to a career as a head coach. He had never been a head coach before, obviously. Who was brought in? You got Callahan brought in for the offensive line. Stefanski really is the de facto offensive coordinator. And look at how those two sides of the ball are operating. The offensive line is better than it's ever been. Guys who were marginal in the past became good. People who were good became great. And that's thanks to Callahan and the methodology that he's teaching.
It's development.
And scheme, which is Stefanski, which is the zone blocking scheme. So now we look at the defensive side of the ball. Guy who's really only been for a brief time a defensive coordinator, and that hadn't been, that was like, 4 years ago, and nobody hired him since, and all of a sudden, we hire him out of nowhere. Who hired him?
Kevin Stefanski.
Did he?
I think he was hired because they were together in Minnesota, and I think he developed a friendship there and decided to take a chance that he probably shouldn't have.
Big mistake. Big mistake. And we know how the game is played because it's the good old boy network. That's the way the NFL's always been and always will be. I'll tell you this. There's nothing to be impressed about a guy sitting there saying, well, you can't tackle, you can't cover all of them. I mean, let's stop and think for a minute. The idiot is playing a 4-2-5. That means he has 7 men off the line of scrimmage. That means he has 7 people in coverage, theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Against how many receivers? If there's a guy coming out of the backfield, that's 1. And if they have 4 wideouts on the field at one time, that's 5. So 7 guys can't cover 5.
Well, and like I said on Monday, you can't have 3 safeties deep. You got to have 1 in the box. And he continuously had guys deep when other routes were over the middle or short.
And
you can't give the 2 best receivers that on the opposing team a free release off the line of scrimmage every fucking play, and then position your guys 4 yards away from them.
That's the most concerning thing here. He's saying you can't cover them all. Well, who is all? There's 2 people you need to worry about.
That's right.
And if you have to worry about McCole Hardman beating you, okay. I can understand that if he gets open every once in a while. But if you don't primarily try to stop Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, you have no game plan. They don't have Sammy Watkins anymore. They don't have anybody else other than Kelce, Hill, and I guess you could say McCole Hardman. But like I said, if McCole Hardman beats you, so what? You can live with that.
And that's what any simpleton, and I'm not calling you a simpleton, Derek, but any simpleton would understand that the crux of the defensive game plan has to be to limit Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Instead, we highlighted them.
Yeah.
We made sure that they caught everything that was thrown their way because they were so wide open. And I'm sorry, I don't know who this person is trying to get into the stream. I don't recognize the name. I ain't letting you on the air. If you're somebody that is known, put a real name up for me. Thank you. You can't just give things up to their best receivers. Oh, okay. Now I know who it is. It's Steven.
Hey. What's going on? Long time no see, guys.
I figured you'd be around.
Yeah.
27-7 at the half, huh?
Yep. You guys will make a second half comeback. But at the end of the day, the Texans will win.
Yeah, okay, and you're a fan, and I understand that. I'm wondering, is your back feeling better, Steven?
What's wrong with my back?
Well, I mean, I'm just making sure it's good enough that you can bend over and blow me when we beat you.
Oh, I should be able and ready.
Okay, great.
I thought you were going to make a joke about Texas getting ass raped by Arkansas.
That too.
No, I mean, look, fans are fans, and hey, you got a big win the first week against Trevor Lawrence and the college coach, and college quarterback and a college coach equals a college effort, and we'll see. We'll see if Tyrod Taylor can come out and throw for 300 plus yards again. He might, with the way the Browns defense plays, and Joe Babe in the woods, coordinates. It's entirely possible. Right. But
I see Vegas gave y'all 11.5-point favorite.
It's now up to 13.
God.
yeah, and this is and it is a little bit. It's interesting because one thing that makes me feel good about the Browns is that we came into the noise environment, and in that first half, we took it to Kansas City. And the people are saying, well, it was crowd noise that ended up getting to him. No, it was a drop punt. That was the absolute death of the Cleveland Browns. The absolute death was Gillen dropping the punt and not picking it up and punting it and panicking, going, and running away.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't even really the dropped punt. It was what happened after.
He just totally blanked out, totally panicked. No question. And he was back in Australian rules football. And it is a problem. But that's the past. Now, there is some news before we get into the present. All right. For one, be prepared for the Steelers to be 2-0 because the Raiders have just ruled their best running back, Josh Jacobs, out for Sunday's game because of toe and ankle injuries. And the Steelers will be 2-0 at the end of this game because we know the Raiders can't play two good games in a row.
Nope.
And I will be 0-2 in fantasy football because Josh Jacobs was one of my running backs. So.
Yeah. And they never tell you this stuff is going to happen, or is happening. It comes out of the blue. All right.
It's all luck, or mostly luck.
And of course, now with the Browns, our linebacking situation, not that Anthony Walker was doing anything special, but now we're down to Mac Wilson, Taki, Koromoa, as Kevin Stefanski said, to pick up the slack.
And Malcolm Smith.
Malcolm Smith is old and slow. He proved that he can't even change directions. I mean, he is of no assistance whatsoever.
Doesn't mean you're not going to see him on the fucking field, though.
But I'm telling you that he's done. He's finished. His career should be over. No acceleration. He can't cover. And that's what he supposedly was good at.
And Moo, I heard this stat this morning on the radio on my way to school. I couldn't believe it. Anthony Walker in the game had 10 tackles. So, even though he's not the greatest of all time, 10 tackles on this defense at linebacker especially is something we need to have.
Yeah, he's a veteran presence, and he was a guy who was calling the sets. So now
it's John Johnson who's going to have the green dot.
Probably he'll have the green dot because none of these other guys are in a position. And, you saw Mac Wilson's great effort at taking down Patrick Mahomes. He looked like one of those biblical figures who was turned into a pillar of salt. Taki, who can run into people, Taki's in the game when it's a 4-3 front.
Yeah.
Putting it real simple, which isn't very often. So Taki is the third linebacker in a 4-3 set. And that's usually when you want to stop the running game.
Which is what the game plan this week should be. The Texans made most of their bread with Mark Ingram. So should be a primary 4-3.
26 carries to get 85 yards.
Well, yeah.
It was Tyrod Taylor had an additional 40 yards rushing. But yeah, it took him 26 carries to get 85 yards, and but of course they were playing Jacksonville, and that doesn't exactly equate to playing Cleveland.
True.
Now, Koromoa is a guy who didn't look like he knew exactly where to line up on the field and where to go, and there was some film on him of him freezing and just staring into the backfield. He's not ready for prime time, and it's going to be a chore getting through this game with, and now the offensive line issues as well, where, which we know that Hubbard is out, and we don't know for how long, but it's a tricep, so it could be a while. and that
A
Wills.
tricep is what ended Joe Thomas's career, by the way.
That's right. And we don't know what happened to his tricep either. And then, of course, we have, Jedrick Wills, who is day-to-day, but has been day-to-day all week. And then we have James Hudson Thurston Howell III. And we saw him in preseason, and that was really a lot of mistakes, holds and offsides and stuff that happened in the preseason.
And Moo, as far as the JOK thing goes, even though he did look out of place, he graded as the third best rookie linebacker. He had a 69.5 rating, which doesn't sound the greatest, but when you look at our linebackers as a whole, I believe he was like second. So, I mean, it's a rough group we have.
And, for all the talk about Reuben the Criminal Foster in for a workout, they didn't sign him. And Elijah Lee, who was playing number 49 in the preseason, I don't know what he's wearing now.
I thought it was 52.
He was 49, I think. Elijah Lee is a possible starter at this point. So that'll tell you how deep we're going.
And if they wanted Reuben Foster, he wouldn't have left the building. That's the reality. So he's not going to be signed by the Browns.
Right.
Or I would be shocked.
That's over and done with. So that you understand my negativity toward Malcolm Smith. He played 17 snaps at Kansas City and allowed 2 touchdowns lined up against Kelsey. He didn't earn an increase in usage. And the fact that Smith is allegedly a coverage linebacker, I think you're not going to see him on the field all that much. At least I hope not.
Yeah, them Super Bowl MVP days are long gone.
Yeah, he's long in the tooth, that's for sure. And, saying that Anthony Walker is going to be gone for 3 weeks is a wild guess. Nobody can say when you're dealing with a hamstring and what the grade of the tear is as far as, this is, I'm assuming, honestly, that if it's enough to take him out for 3 weeks, it's 4 to 6. Okay?
Yeah.
I've had the injury. As a tennis player, I've done it before. And when you have something where you really have a grade 2, that's not a grade 3. We're just talking a grade 2 is 4 to 6 weeks. So you're not going to see him for a while.
I was kind of surprised with that breaking news this morning because we knew he had aggravated it in the training camp or whatever. But I was expecting more if he had an injury to be a day-to-day type thing where maybe he's out for a week or two. For them to keep him out a minimum of 3 tells you a lot, especially given with this linebacking group we have now. So it's probably more serious, as you're saying, than what they're letting out.
And then the other thing is OBJ, who was really ruled out in the beginning of the week, and it really makes you wonder. First of all, I would imagine that the Browns were happy with what they saw initially from Anthony Schwartz. And second of all, I think
they're being overly cautious with this ACL injury.
I think that, 10 months after, that's part of it. But he was all that hard work we saw him doing. And I have to believe that he's experiencing discomfort in his knee and that's the reason why they're not letting him come out in the field, because he's feeling, and I can't speak for ACL repairs. I can talk about knee replacements, but, you overdo it and you ramp up too quickly and swelling becomes a problem. And I'm wondering if that's what part of the issue is. And they're not going to tell us what's going on. But what I've come to accept is that the whole Odell Beckham Jr. trade was a waste of fucking time, because he's like a thoroughbred horse that can snap his leg at any minute. And I understand what glorious things he can do in practice, catching the ball with one hand. But what he's done in Cleveland has been negligible. And since we became a good team, non-existent. And he's no closer to hitting the field, in my estimation, and he may be, I can tell you for a fact that he's further away than he was 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Because they were talking about him playing week 1.
And I think Schwartz's performance has a lot to do with it. He was graded as the #1 rookie wide receiver as far as production and stuff goes. He had a 82.2 PFF grade. But if that continues, they're not going to rush OBJ back. I mean, if they see
There's
no
no
need
reason
to,
to.
yeah.
I mean, there's never going to be a chemistry there between he and Mayfield. They never play together. And quite honestly, he's a horrible distraction when he does play. I mean, we move on. I mean, that was just kind of a wipeout.
And it's not that the Browns don't need to replace OBJ as far as a possible production, because when we brought him in, we needed a #1 receiver. And I think we still do. I think we need somebody like OBJ who can take the top off and be reliable. Schwartz is not reliable yet. That's why I'm saying this. But as far as that trade, it has not been anything what we've hoped. And he's been more of a name than anything else. He'll sell jerseys. He'll look good, in your hype videos. But when it comes to on the field, he's good for 1 to 2 good catches a game. And that's it when he is on the field.
And I see Joe Shipley's in the chat room. Joe, I never wished anything bad on your Ravens, but I told you that there is going to be a day of reckoning in which Lamar Jackson has to be able to prove that he can win games with his arm. And now with the running game kind of, I saw that Devontae Freeman is now brought up and that they've passed on Le'Veon Bell, left him on the practice squad. They're hoping to get some running game back, but he still has to prove that he can win with his arm. And what I've seen from Lamar Jackson is a lot of different throwing slot angles, which usually means accuracy issues for major league pitchers. He's throwing the ball sidearm sometimes. He's throwing it a little more over the top other times. There's adversity. And right now, it's all playing to the Steelers' advantage because they were on nobody's radar. They came out with a huge Week 1 win. And now all of a sudden, they're playing a toothless Raiders team without their running game. And if you can't run against the Steelers, you don't want to be passing all the time against them.
And
Derek Carr's could get hurt.
As far as the Ravens go, another thing is their offensive line looked very, very suspect. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but you know who I'm talking about from the Steelers. I think it's Villanueva, if I'm correct. He looked horrible. He was not good. And I think their entire offensive line didn't look great as a whole throughout that game. And that's going to be a thing that could bite them in the butt because if you don't have a run game and your offensive line is struggling like that, it's not going to help.
Well, General Dog, Tyrod Taylor equals LOL. But, here's the thing. The way you make Tyrod Taylor to be who we thought he was is by putting pressure on him. And your front four has to do that. You have to get pass rush on him. And you got to get him throwing into traffic and forcing him into making fast reads, fast decisions. Because if you just leave the tight ends wide open going off the line of scrimmage with free release, again, he's just going to pick you apart.
And keep him inside the pocket.
But he's going to he'll complete 65% of his passes without a problem, right? If there's just free release given to wide receivers and tight ends. So, I'm not going to sit and laugh at Tyrod Taylor. I'm going to sit and say our defense has to do a vastly better job. And, as far as the Browns are concerned, around people making predictions, everyone's predicting that the Browns are going to win this game, except for Steven. And I don't consider him an expert, but I consider him somebody who is a fan.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of fans for the Texans probably don't believe they're going to win this game. It's going to be a little different playing in the Browns' home stadium where the crowd can really get things going. And Tyrod Taylor has something to prove to the Browns, so we hear, because, Baker Mayfield took over for him after, he turned out to be a limp dick in Cleveland. And Tyrod Taylor has not been very good at his last several stops.
Yeah, it's 2017 was the last time he had any really of a good season, and that was that loss in the wild card game against Jacksonville, and he had an okay season. It wasn't anything spectacular. They went, I think, 9-7 that year.
He's a game manager. I mean, and he's a guy who will hold on to the ball and keep the ball out of the Browns' hands. That's what he does. Now, the fact they exploded for the number of points they did in week 1, 33 points is a lot of points for him to put up on the board. Make no mistake about that, but it helps when you get 3 interceptions and you get field position as well. That way, if you're only averaging 3.3 yards per rush, you still win the football game handily, because from that point, Trevor Lawrence was reduced to becoming literally a throwing jugs machine.
Well, I do, and again, I told DF Sports this the other day when he was on my podcast. I said, I want to see how the Browns secondary is going to do on Danny Amendola, Brandon Cooks, and what's that other receiver? We have Nico Collins, who had some drops in the last game. I mean, a lot of those passes were badly thrown by Tyrod, but I think Tyrod has a lot more weapons than when he was with the Browns and with the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Tyrod Taylor as a game manager, a guy who,
of course,
and he will check down. But checking down is great if the Browns defense is just dropping back into deep coverage. And that's what we did all last year, and that's what we did week 1. And according to what we just saw from Joe Woods and heard from his mouth, that he only turns up the heat occasionally every now and then. And that's got to be really reassuring for other teams to hear.
But I do want to see how your Terrence Mitchell's going to do on Jarvis Landry, former Brown against current Brown. Because we got Terrence Mitchell in the backfield. Yeah. So I'm looking forward. They're probably going to put him on Jarvis Landry, which seems like to me like the obvious coverage, because Jarvis Landry still presents a very big wide receiver threat in terms of like getting open, and, the guy has amazing speed, and he can catch the ball. So that's why I think Terrence Mitchell's probably going to be the best guy we can put on him.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep a spy on him, because the Browns are utilizing him as a decoy in a lot of instances, and using him on end arounds and using him on, throwing situations. And it's really kind of to me, what's more important than Jarvis Landry is we need to get some people on the field. I mean, first, Njoku was getting downfield, and that was nice to see. And the Harrison Bryant thing is fading. You have Austin Hooper, who is your guy, who's your possession tight end, and then you have the athletic Njoku. If he can get downfield and get the right one-on-one coverage, you saw what he could do against the Chiefs. Harrison Bryant is somewhere in between and is neither fish nor fowl, and is clearly right now the third tight end in the system. So,
just for the record, I only said the Texans were going to win because it was hate week. But if you ask me from an outside perspective, the Browns should win this game by at least 2 scores minimum.
Well, And Moo, just now, since we're talking about it, I went back and watched some of these highlights. And what I see, it's a lot of Tyrod Taylor. And Steven, if I'm wrong, correct me. It's a lot of Tyrod Taylor getting out of the pocket, and it's a lot of power run game. Yeah. So it's almost like, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but it's almost like a Ravens light team here. It's a lot of the same stuff. So the Browns have to keep Taylor in the pocket, and they have to be aggressive in the run defense, I should say, and force Tyrod Taylor to make passes from the pocket.
Well, I can tell you another thing. If all the pressure you're getting is from Myles Garrett and a little bit from Clowney, and you're not getting that the bull rush, then there's going to be a chance for him to step up and step to the side and get out of there. The thing with Tyrod is you've got to push with your interior lineman back into him, so that what's coming around him from the outside, you're forming a circle around him, quite literally.
Yeah, and this has to be
up for grabs.
This has to be a big McDowell game. They counted him as a rookie, and you can't see me, but I say air quotes rookie since it's his first game. He graded as the number 1 defensive tackle, but in this game, the Texans don't have they have weapons, but they don't have the Chiefs' weapons. You know, they're
No,
not
of
going to
course
have
not.
they're not going to have the luxury of Kelsey and Hill quickly getting, into space. The Browns are going to have to, with Miles and Clowney and McKinley even, try to trap Tyrod from the outside. And then McDowell's going to have to get that pressure in the middle, just like in that Falcons preseason game where he just bull rushed that guard or center right into the quarterback. That's what we need to see Sunday if our defense is going to take a big step here, which I don't expect, but fingers crossed.
Amsterdam left tackle is Hudson the third, unless Jedrick Wills makes a remarkable recovery and gives it a go. But Hubbard is gone. So.
He was on the bike today in practice, so that's not exactly encouraging on a Friday.
Especially when you're dealing with an ankle. That's, and there's no reason to jeopardize your starting left tackle. But the problem is Baker's blind side is definitely, there's going to be a problem with Hudson there. He's just not, I'm sure that Callahan's working with him as hard as he can. But, this is the kind of stuff that happened last year where guys stepped up. You keep your fingers crossed and you hope that he steps up and gets things done.
Well, and that's the best thing here is we couldn't ask for a better teacher to help him through this, as far as his first time starting at left tackle. So I do have confidence there, but we'll see.
Yeah, and, there are people who are, there are lots of games. We like to talk about the predictions, and the predictions have been pretty much what you'd expect them to be. And I'll go through the sources here. The Sporting News, and I looked at just a wide range of people making picks. And for instance, they picked the Giants to beat Washington. I really, before we even say anything,
they almost did.
Well, look,
they damn sure almost did win that game.
The Giants are a bunch of schmucks. Talking about fucking up. I mean, why in the center of the line would you jump off sides? That guy legitimately missed the 48-yard field goal. I mean, he choked it out and pushed it. I mean, and then they give him a second chance. That's the Giants. And Judge is not going to be.
Well, it can't be worse than Rude taking his helmet off and slamming it down after that victory against the Chiefs y'all had back in the day. Where that
that was not a victory. That was a loss.
Well, that's what I mean. When he took the helmet off and threw it and then got
but
flagged.
Lots of players have done that before. The Browns were the only team, though, that was penalized for it. Oh. You know that, don't you?
There was a guy in week 1 that did that.
Yeah, there were at least 4 videos out after that happened of different guys who had done it, and nothing was ever said. So
there was a linebacker for Tampa Bay that did that after dropping a fucking surefire interception.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, there's just no, there is no consistency. The Broncos.
It's good to have the ring.
The Broncos and the Jaguars. I mean, listen to some of this. But the Buffalo's got to play at Miami. Miami's got some injury problems, the Bills need to pick it up. If they turn around and lose to the Dolphins, they're 2 games behind right off the bat in the East. That's not a good place to be starting. The Steelers, everybody's picking the Steelers to win. Sporting News is saying 30-20, and that's pretty much the extent of what I'm seeing. The Browns are being, by the way, they're picking the Bengals to beat the Bears 26-23. That would mean 2-0.
I agree with that one.
I'm sorry?
I agree with that one. Yeah,
the Bears aren't going to really scare anybody, to tell you the truth. They're picking the Browns to win 33-20 over the Texans. And then you have, I'm looking for the Chiefs at the Ravens, and they're saying the Chiefs 31-26 over the Ravens. But I mean, this is just, then sometimes, like if you go to CBS Sports, every one of their so-called experts has picked Cleveland to win. All right.
Oh yeah, I saw 40-3. One ESPN analyst said that the Browns will win,
and everyone says Pittsburgh's going to win. So There's a consensus on many of these things in our division. Kansas City and Baltimore, everyone's saying Kansas City is going to win that game. And
Get right, kryptonite.
yeah, I mean,
I think that one could get ugly.
Yeah.
So what's game of the week for you guys? Is there any particular game you'll be watching other than your own?
No, I'm only watching my own, and I only give a shit about the Browns. The rest of it is just marveling at how many people are being carted off the field. I can't believe the games I'm watching, how many what look like season-ending injuries there are so early in the season for teams. It's really it's hard to watch.
And everybody had an off season.
Yeah, big old lineman, man, just laying on the ground and just being wheeled off the field, man, in the meat wagon. Pete Prisco is picking the Bears to beat the Bengals. Isn't that something? He's picking the Browns to beat the Texans 30-24. He's picking the Bills to crush the Dolphins 29-18. This is the guy, and he's picking, of course, the Steelers 23-14 over the Raiders. And I believe that the Steelers will hold the Raiders under 20 points. I do believe that is a likelihood.
Yeah, that's going to be more like 27-10, I think.
Okay.
If the Raiders are one-dimensional, forget it.
He's
Mr. Boulet,
picking the Chiefs to beat the Ravens 33-28. Go ahead.
I know this is kind of early to ask. I asked DF Sports this yesterday. How many teams do you got out of the AFC North making the playoffs? I mean, I know it's kind of early to tell, but if you could make a guess, how many teams do you think it would be?
It could be three or it could be one.
I'm thinking at least two.
Way too early to tell. And the reason I say that is that I have a suspicion when things get off to a really bad start, like the Ravens have gotten off to with unfortunate injuries, it's just a matter of time until Lamar Jackson goes down with an injury, and they can't overcome that. So, all bets are off. I mean, if you're, if you're the Browns without Baker Mayfield, if you're the Ravens without Lamar Jackson, and I'll tell you something else. In that great Steelers win in week 1, Ben hit the ground once and he looked like my grandfather getting up. I mean, seriously, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, if he faces a serious pass rush, and I mean, not necessarily a sack, but a hurry where he gets hit, he may not get up. So I can't answer that question. I mean, if I were to say from the ability of the teams, the Ravens and the Browns would be the two that would come out. But right now, there's so many injuries in the league, and it's hitting everybody. And it's just like our offensive line is perpetually injured. This is the second year in a row for a young player like Wills, and that does not bode well. We've had playing, guys who didn't even know one another last year. And every week, J.C. Treader is being sat down, and so is Conklin. Conklin's knee is bothering him, and he got blown by Jones of Kansas City.
Yeah.
People kept talking about, it's Hubbard. Bullshit. That one of the big sacks that happened on Baker, Conklin couldn't even get out of his stance, and they can't put him in at left tackle.
Well, and
I think Teller got beat one time too.
And Moo, what I told Steven yesterday, I agreed with Brian. I think it could be 2. I think it could be 1. But I think I agree with you on the Ravens. I just don't feel good about them this year. I agree on the injury front. They have too many injuries. They replaced too many guys. And the Steelers, yeah, they look good, but I mean, like you said with Ben, it's just a matter of time. And do you have faith in Mason Rudolph? I don't. And with the Bengals, I think it's just too early to answer that question. So it could be, 2, 3, could be 1. I don't know.
Now, Keith, I
thoroughly disagree with Keith.
Yeah, well, this is what the Browns said. But with Conklin, first of all, you never move a person and move 2 people when you can just move 1. That's
Yeah.
the first thing. And the second thing is he's got a bad knee. You don't want him at left tackle. You want him playing the position that he knows how to play first and foremost. So,
And he might have not played left tackle since I think college, maybe not even college.
yeah. I mean, you know, and I'm there's so many more picks. All the picks are pretty much saying the same thing. They're all saying that the Steelers are going to win, the Browns are going to win, the Ravens are going to lose. And the only thing that I'm not sure of is, with the Ravens, my question is just if they can't run the ball again. I mean, we just ran right over the Chiefs. If they can run the ball against the Chiefs, they could give just as tough a battle to the Chiefs as we did. And if their punter doesn't panic, they could win. That's totally possible. And as far as Pittsburgh is concerned, I think they're a surefire winner this week. So, we got to win. You can't go to 0-2. You know what the numbers are on teams that start out the season 0-2 in the playoffs. They don't make it.
Even with an extra game.
Yeah.
Because now we got a 17-game season.
Right.
And 7 teams making the playoffs from each conference.
And Keith, they say 9 months is the earliest for an ACL, but I've never really seen a professional athlete in a contact sport come back, less than 12 months after. I thought this was all being rushed and hyped up, and I was not so sure. When I saw him running on the treadmill so fast, I was thinking to myself, man, I know my rehab for my knee replacement, and that is, just as, believe me, a knee replacement is a destructive thing. And I intentionally stayed in bed for 6 weeks. I went to my 3 times a week physical therapy at a physical therapy unit, but I did very little but move around the house with a walker and do leg raises in bed, strengthen my quad muscle through contraction, and making sure that I was icing nonstop. And by not playing tennis or trying to play tennis until 6 months after the procedure, and I didn't have residual swelling. The problem with surgery is that the method and mechanism of healing in the body, if you put too much on it too soon, you will end up with swelling and discomfort. And if he's reached that point, he's really at a start over point. I'm not expecting to hear much about OBJ. Seriously, I've written him off. I don't consider him a factor for this year. I really don't. As far as Schwartz is concerned, Derek, do you think that Anthony Schwartz is it the Anthony Schwartz who had that tough traffic catch, who couldn't hold on and bobbled one when he was wide open, that if he'd have caught it clean, he would have scored a touchdown on? Or is he the guy who caught the ball in the hands, with his hands on the first pass that was thrown his way? Who is he? And he's being listed as questionable with a knee. Did you know that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yep. There's always something seemingly wrong with his legs. What I need to say is get ready, Rashard Higgins, because we need reliable hands and reliable performers to bail us out when we're having problems. And Anthony Schwartz, he just appeared on the injury list citing a knee. And I know nothing else about it. You can look that up if you would for me, Derek, and see what the hell that's all about. But that just came up at a last minute.
And another thing on the OBJ front, people don't realize that his position, that's not a position where, he's constantly running, he's constantly cutting. And if his knee's swelling and we've kind of relapsed back to that, that's a huge, huge deal.
It's a setback, major setback. And because once the swelling starts in, there could be a lot of reasons for that. And you don't want to push back too hard and too fast from an injury like that. And, somebody's saying Saquon Barkley here looks terrible after the ACL injury. He's not the same running back he was. I'll tell you that. That sharp cut, we know from Gale Sayers back before they knew what to do with the injury, it is that burst isn't there. And that's why my concerns for Lamar Jackson, because he doesn't even need to get hit. The way he cuts, if his cleat gets stuck in the grass and the turf, and he goes one way and the knee goes the other, his ACL's gone. And if his ACL's gone, think RG3. You cannot become what you were after that injury if you're relying on fast cutting. It's a very hard thing to do.
And I'm not finding a whole lot of information here on this injury. It's just the same thing of he was limited in practice with a knee. I did see one article said it could be a lingering thing that he had to deal with, from his hamstring. It could be overcompensating. So I have not gotten much more than that. And of course,
still questionable.
Yes, he's still questionable. So
yeah, so that means we'll have no speed at the wide receiver position. Just saying. And you're going to have to rely on, and you don't have a Kadarrell Hodge. And how did Kadarrell Hodge do in the Lions' first game, by the way? I'm just curious. Nothing you can look at. Hey, you volunteered, Derek.
I know. I'll do it.
Derek got himself a nice iPad. So he's using that as a second screen here to kind of be my following my twisted thought process.
Thank you, Ohio State.
I was going to say thanks to the Ohio State University and his tuition, outlandish tuition.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm paying for it. You best believe it.
But you need people who are able to step up in situations like this. And the guy, Davion Davis can't play. He's suspended for 2 games because of the DUI from 17 years ago. So you don't have somebody. It's Rashard Higgins. You're going to have great pattern running and great chemistry. And Higgins is a guy who can help you a hell of a lot in that regard.
Boy, Hodge hasn't even had a reception yet.
Has he played snaps?
I don't know, but I'm looking at ESPN stats right now. He's not even listed as a reception. Right now, Darren Fells with 1 is the last. So that's interesting. You have
Speaking of former Browns, Moo, if you watch the highlights for Washington, Ricky Seals-Jones actually caught a touchdown pass for the Washington football team.
Wow.
Yeah, and I saw that, and I never thought
for all the bagging that you and Rick did on that poor kid, he's still fucking catching touchdowns.
He couldn't block.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't fit our scheme.
The question about that tight end wasn't that he couldn't catch the ball; it's that he couldn't block. He was a luxury that the Browns didn't need.
Well, and remember,
no one else has either, and he filtered his way down to Washington. What's your point?
And remember, if Ricky Seals-Jones was a guy that's a Dorsey guy, he knew him from playing basketball, so he had a personal relationship there and gave him a chance. So.
Yeah, so I guess we have to start checking.
Well, the point being that nobody caught a touchdown pass in the game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Kadarrell Hodge thing. Now I'm kind of.
He's probably
curious.
Playing more snaps in special teams, punt coverage and kickoff coverage.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything, but I know he hasn't had a reception.
And that's what they brought him in for.
I think he's more of a replacement due to injury, and playing on that fucking turf, it's going to happen.
Well, and the interesting thing here is when you look at this receptions list, the Lions have guys like Amon, I can't even say it, St. Brown. He's a rookie out of USC who's already had 3 receptions, or what's he had? 2 receptions, 4 targets. So, I mean, all their receptions running back DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson, running back Jamal Williams. So you got to go to the fourth player listed before you hit a receiver here as far as their targets.
Oh, September 12th off RotoWire. Kaderil Hodge inactive for Sunday's game against the 49ers. He didn't play in week 1. Do you believe
that makes sense.
They thought enough to put a waiver claim on him. However,
is it injury or just inactive?
No, he's behind Terrell Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Khalif Raymond, and backups Quintez Cephas and Trinity Benson on the depth chart at receiver.
Wow.
So he went to sit.
And he took a pay cut.
He took $1 million pay cut. Absolutely crazy shit.
And you know what? He was probably thinking, I've proved myself on the Browns. I had a great preseason. I'm going to go to a terrible team and I'll get a lot of playing time. And then look at this.
And Harrison Bryant did actually put on muscle and weight compared to last year, but he's not.
He still does. It's a thing he's got to keep working on.
This is a work in progress.
Well, and it's almost like in the NBA with Giannis. Giannis in his, I can't remember what year it was as far as his career, but he went from looking like a high school kid and in one off season or 2 off seasons put on all this muscle that he has now. So Harrison Bryant, I don't know who he needs to get with, but from a strength and conditioning standpoint, he has to put on some muscle.
And Hodge was active against the Chiefs, and RotoWire lied.
Well, they didn't play the Chiefs, so I don't know what you're talking about there, Kevin. We played the Chiefs. The Lions played the 49ers.
Yeah, I think that's...
that other Kansas City.
Yeah. I think... it's... we got to pick... We got to pick the game. So we're going to start with Brian. What's your pick?
Strictly on the Cleveland game, I'm going to go with the Browns. 27-17. I think it's going to be a 10-point win.
All right, Derek?
I'm sticking to what I said. I'm saying 37-13 Browns. I think they get up early. And they hopefully do what I said defensively, and then hopefully we get to see a new side of this offense. I want to see a little bit more passing downfield.
And I'm going to say the Browns 34-24. I still think they're going to give up too many points, but I'm Johnny One Note right now. I'm just very concerned about this one guy. The defensive coordinator can bring this whole thing down.
I see a lot of field goals from the Texans.
That's the history of Tyrod Taylor. But again, if Malcolm Smith's in the game near the goal line, we were not defensively stout in the red zone in week 1. So
just go down the list. Malcolm Smith, Mac Wilson, anybody in the red zone.
And, Tom has the Browns up 28-17. Ron, how you doing, Ron? 32-21. TJ has them up 31-13. Amsterdam, who is, I don't know what happened to him. He's, Tom Holly has the Browns up. I'm trying to follow all of this as it moves. Amsterdam has it 41-20. Gronk has it 27-6. That would be the day. If Joe Wood's defense holds the Texans to 6 points, I will be mortified. Absolutely mortified. It would be
I do
amazing.
think the Browns will put up a ton of points offensively, regardless of what happens on defense for the Browns. I think offense will put up a lot of points.
Well, Lovie Smith is their defensive coordinator, premium on turnovers. The Browns can't fall into Baker staring down one receiver. They're just going to have to be very sharp and crisp in what they do. And it does become very important to get up on this team early, to get that crowd into the game, and to get the players loosened up, because it was a real bad ending for Cleveland last week. and they need to get a little momentum going and feeling good about themselves. And I'll
I
tell
also-
you, another thing is Myles Garrett and Clowney have to tee off. We got to
Yep.
see some sacks.
I also think it's good from the Browns passing side of things that Baker knows Terrence Mitchell so well, because he is their number one and he'll be lined up against our number one or number two the majority of the time. So I think that goes for the Browns.
Yep. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in. I'm going to be here. You know that. Come Sunday at about probably 2:30 is when halftime hits. There'll be a halftime and a post-game show like there always is. And I hope that I can keep the optimism that I had in the last halftime show all the way through the game. And I hope the Browns play 60 minutes of solid football. I think
This is a
everybody
1 o'clock, right?
It's a 1 o'clock. Yep.
Okay.
And I thank everybody.
Which
for
is 10
tuning
o'clock
in.
for us over on the left coast.
And, you know, the last show, this last Monday show garnered 300 views, which is a good number for this program, a boutique program for a weekly show. And I appreciate your support. And I'm going to keep bringing it through all 17 plus weeks of this season. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again on Sunday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
See